My name is Megan. I'm 34 and I work as a project manager at a logistics company here in Austin. My life's pretty quiet, nothing too exciting, but I like it that way. I rent a small 2-bedroom apartment on the east side. It's neat, cozy, and most importantly, peaceful. Every Sunday, though, I drive over to my parents' house for dinner. It's become this unspoken tradition. Half the time, I don't really want to go. I'd much rather relax at home, but my mother's voice is always in my head. Family first, Megan, so like clockwork I show up. That particular Sunday, things already felt off as soon as I pulled up. My brother Sean's dusty old pickup truck was in the driveway. Sean's 38, recently divorced, and has 2 kids, Ben, who's 9, and Lily, who just turned 6. Sean's life has been a bit of a mess since the divorce. And by mess, I mean chaotic. He's been crashing at my parents' house on and off for months, and they've been helping him pay rent at a place he barely lives in. The rest of that rent, I cover it. Yep, me. But tonight, something felt different. I parked, took a deep breath, and walked up to the front door. As soon as I knocked, I could hear the usual noise from inside, the kids yelling, my mom's sharp voice telling them to sit down, the TV blaring from the living room, where my dad was probably glued to some sports game. Megan's here, my mom called as she opened the door. She's 60, works part-time at a bookstore, and somehow makes every sentence feel like either a command or a complaint. There's no middle ground with her. Dad barely looked up from his recliner. Hey, kiddo, how's the corporate jungle? Same as always, meetings, spreadsheets, deadlines, I said with a forced smile. I stepped into the kitchen where Sean sat scrolling on his phone while Ben and Lily chased each other around the table. Lily shrieked as Ben grabbed a handful of her hair. Sean didn't even flinch. That's just Sean. He's always been charming, but flaky, tall, good-looking, the life of the party. And since his divorce, he's doubled down on his reputation as the fun dad, which really means leaving the heavy lifting of parenting to whoever happens to be nearby, usually our parents, or me. Over the past year, Sean's turned my apartment into a backup daycare. I've lost track of how many times he's called or just shown up at my door. Meg, can you watch them tonight? Just tonight. I got this thing, and it's always just tonight. Except it's not. It turns into whole weekends where I cancel plans, order takeout for 3, and referee fights between a moody 9-year-old and a drama queen 6-year-old. Every time I try to push back, Sean, can we set up a schedule, or I really need some time to myself. He gives me that wounded look and launches into a speech about how hard single fatherhood is. Then Mom jumps in. He's trying his best. Megan, don't be selfish. Selfish. That word hits me like a punch every time, as if I haven't been helping enough already. But this Sunday was the tipping point. We sat down to dinner, me, Sean, the kids, and our parents, and right away I noticed the smiles being exchanged around the table. My parents kept glancing at Sean like they were all in on some secret. Then Sean put his fork down and leaned forward. So, I've got some news, he said, his face lighting up. My stomach sank. I met someone, he continued. Her name's Julie. She's amazing. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks, and honestly, I think she might be the one. Mom clapped her hands together. That's wonderful, Sean. Thanks, Mom, he said. Thing is, Julie doesn't know about Ben and Lily yet. I froze. Sean kept going like he didn't just drop a bomb. We're getting serious fast, and I want to ease her into the idea of kids. Here it comes, I thought. So, I was thinking, Sean said, turning directly to me. It'd be good for the kids to stay with you for a while. You know, while I get things settled with Julie, just until she's ready. I just stared at him. Mom chimed in, smiling. It makes sense, honey. The kids adore you. And you have that spare bedroom, don't you? It's only temporary. Temporary, I knew exactly what that meant in my family's language. Temporary meant until further notice. I can't, I finally said. I have work and plans this weekend. Sean's smile faltered for a second. Meg, come on. You're great with them. And I'll visit, I promise. Before I could reply, Mom jumped in again, her tone sharpening to Megan. Don't be difficult. This is your family. Sean is trying to rebuild his life, and you should be supporting that. Dad chimed in without looking up from his plate. You don't have kids. It's not like you're too busy. Selfish. That word hung in the air even if no one said it out loud this time. I sat there, my appetite gone. The kids didn't seem to notice the tension. They were too busy arguing over who got the last dinner roll. But my mind was racing. They were planning to just drop Ben and Lily at my door and expected me to smile and go along with it like I had nothing else going on in my life, like my independence didn't matter. After dinner, as we cleaned up, Mom pulled me aside. You'll do it right. Sean's happiness depends on it. I nodded slowly, but my heart wasn't in it. Sure, Mom, I said quietly. But in that moment, I made a decision this was the last time they were going to guilt trip me into taking responsibility for my brother's choices. They didn't know that I'd already signed a lease for a new apartment on the other side of town, a place no one in my family knew about, and I'd be gone before they even realized it. That night after leaving my parents' house, I drove back to my apartment with a strange calm. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt done, completely done. The minute I walked through the door, I grabbed my laptop, opened the tab I'd bookmarked weeks ago, a listing for a one-bedroom place in a quiet complex on the west side of Austin, and clicked Submit Application. I'd toured it earlier that week, just curious at first. Now, I knew I needed it. Not later. Now. The property manager called me the next morning, bright and early. "Megan, you're approved. When would you like to move in?" I didn't hesitate. "By the end of this week." "Perfect," she said. "We'll have it ready." I hung up, a rush of relief washing over me. For the first time in a long time, I was taking back control, not just saying yes because it was easier than fighting. I would move out quietly, without announcing it to anyone. No drama, no confrontation, just gone. The next few days were a blur. I went to work as usual, kept my head down, smiled when Shawn texted me. "Thanks again, Meg," with heart emojis, and packed my life into boxes at night. The new apartment was smaller, cozier, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood near a park, and far from where anyone in my family would bother to drive without a very good reason. I canceled my internet service at the old place, redirected my mail, and told my landlord I'd vacate by Saturday evening. He didn't mind, he already had another tenant lined up. Everything was falling into place perfectly. By Friday night, I had moved the last box. I stood in the empty living room, where so many nights had been spent babysitting my niece and nephew, while my brother chased his next fling or found himself. The silence felt different now, not like loneliness, but like freedom. Saturday morning arrived exactly as I expected. 9:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. Shawn. "Hey sis, we're heading over with the kids. Be there in 20. I didn't reply. I was sitting at my new kitchen table, sipping coffee with the patio door open, listening to birds instead of the constant chaos I'd grown used to. At 9:30, the text started coming in rapid fire. "Meg, we're here. Why isn't anyone answering? Meg, where are you?" My old landlord must have greeted him soon after, because the next text said, "Wait, he says you moved out." Then silence for 10 minutes. Then another text. "What is going on? Where are you? Call me." I didn't. I just let it play out. Around noon, Mom called. I let that one go too. Then Dad texted. Same thing. By 2 p.m., Shawn's tone shifted. The earlier cheer was gone. Now it was anger. "Can't believe you'd do this to me. To the kids. What kind of aunt are you?" But I kept sipping my coffee and reading my book, my phone on silent. I imagined them standing there, confused and scrambling to come up with a plan B they didn't think they'd need. I knew Shawn would try to drop the kids at my parents' house. I could almost hear Mom telling him her back hurt and Dad claiming he couldn't handle the stress. For once, it wasn't going to be my problem. That evening, I went for a walk through my new neighborhood, a peaceful path along the river, far from their guilt trips and expectations. When I got back, I finally checked my phone. 37 missed calls, 14 voicemails, a string of increasingly desperate texts from Shawn, my parents, and even my Aunt Clara. "Meg, please call Shawn. The kids are confused." "Meg, what are you thinking? This isn't how family treats each other." But that was the thing, wasn't it? My family had been treating me like a live-in nanny, not a daughter or a sister, like my life wasn't my own. I didn't reply. I simply muted the conversation. The next day, Sunday dinner came and went without a single word from me. I pictured this sitting around that table, my empty chair impossible to ignore for the first time in years. On Monday, I took my lunch break at a cafe near my new place. The sun was shining, and I finally felt a lightness I hadn't known I was missing. That afternoon, my cousin Rachel called. Rachel had always been more reasonable than the rest of them, a few years older than me, level-headed and quietly observant. "Megan, what happened?" "Your mom called me in a panic. She says you've disappeared." I laughed softly. Not disappeared, just moved, without telling anyone why. And I told her, all of it, the constant last-minute babysitting, the rent payments, the expectation that I'd drop everything at a moment's notice to clean up Shawn's life, while they all applauded him for trying his best. Rachel was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she sighed. "Wow. Honestly, Meg, good for you. I'm sorry you felt you had to do it this way, but I get it. I really do." It felt good to hear that from someone in the family. By Wednesday, Mom finally left a voicemail that wasn't demanding or angry, just sad. "Megan, we're all worried, please come home for dinner Sunday. Let's talk. But I knew what that meant. It wasn't really an invitation to talk. It was an invitation for another ambush, a chance for them to guilt me back into line. I didn't answer. Instead, I spent the weekend how I wanted, visiting a farmer's market, reading by the river, watching a movie late into the night, without worrying if a child would wake up crying or a brother would show up with a last-minute favor. By Sunday night, the text shifted again from guilt to silence, and the silence was beautiful. But even as I sat there enjoying my first peaceful Sunday in years, I knew this wasn't over. My family wasn't going to give up that easily. Shawn especially. He was too used to getting his way. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew another confrontation was coming, and I was finally ready for it. The following week passed quietly, almost too quietly. The silence from my family was a strange kind of freedom, liberating but eerie. After years of constant texts, requests, and guilt-laden phone calls, the absence felt like walking into a house where you expect noise but find none. But I didn't let myself get too comfortable. I knew my family. They wouldn't stay silent forever. Sure enough, on Thursday evening it happened. I had just returned from work, arms full of groceries, when a knock came at my door. A sharp, insistent knock. I froze. Nobody knew where I lived. I hadn't given my new address to anyone. My stomach tightened. I set the bags down, gently walked to the door, and peered through the peephole. Shawn. He was standing there, arms crossed, face tight with frustration. My heart raced as I considered pretending I wasn't home. But he'd probably seen my car parked out front. Avoiding him now would only escalate things later. I unlocked the door and opened it halfway, leaving the chain in place. "Shawn," I said calmly, keeping my tone neutral. "Megan," he snapped. "Can we talk? Or are you going to hide behind your door forever?" I sighed, unhooked the chain, and opened it fully. "Come in." He stepped inside, glancing around quickly, as if looking for evidence of my new life. He took in the small living room. The boxes I hadn't fully unpacked, the serene simplicity of a space untouched by toys or sticky fingerprints. "So," he began, arms still crossed. "This is where you ran off to? No one even knew you moved. Do you know what you put me through last weekend?" I stayed silent. He filled the space anyway. "I showed up at your old place at 9 sharp with the kids and all their stuff, just like we planned. And you were gone. No warning, no explanation. Just a for rent sign on the door." His voice cracked slightly, but not from sadness, from anger. The kids were confused. Mom and Dad were furious. "David," he hesitated, shaking his head. "David left." That caught my attention. "Left? What do you mean?" Shawn's face darkened. He showed up to move in. I had no choice but to explain everything. "The kids, the situation." He felt blindsided, Megan. He said he couldn't trust me and packed up his truck. I should have felt something, guilt maybe, but all I felt was exhaustion. Exhaustion from years of cleaning up Shawn's messes, exhaustion from being his backup plan. "So, what exactly did you expect me to do, Shawn?" I asked, folding my arms. "Let you drop your kids off for weeks or months while you played house with a woman you were lying to?" His face flushed red. "It wasn't lying, I just needed time to show her we worked before complicating things." I shook my head slowly. "No, Shawn. Hiding your kids isn't simplifying your life, it's deception. And you wanted me to help you do it." He dropped into a chair, rubbing his face. "You just abandoned me. Abandoned them." That word stung. "Abandoned, you have been your unpaid babysitter for over 2 years, Shawn. I paid half your rent. I rearranged my life constantly to accommodate yours. I sacrificed friendships, weekends, peace, all because you couldn't manage your own responsibilities. The one time I say no, I'm abandoning you." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I continued, my voice calm but firm. "You didn't just assume I'd help, you expected it. You counted on it, and so did Mom and Dad." He sat in silence for a moment, then finally muttered, "They're still mad at you, you know." I let out a soft laugh. "Of course they are, because they can't accept that I finally drew a line." Shawn looked up, his expression softening just a little. "They say you should come back for Sunday dinner. Mom keeps saying we need to talk." I could imagine that dinner vividly, the lectures, the guilt trips, the manipulation. "Shawn, you're not here because you care about how I feel. You're here because your plan didn't work, and now you're desperate." He didn't deny it. I shook my head. I'm done being the fallback solution. I'm done living my life according to what everyone else needs. I moved so that I could have space, real space, to figure out what I want. "But your family," he said, his voice lower now, almost pleading. "Yes," I replied gently. "And so are your kids. You're their father, Shawn, not me." He sat there for a long time, just staring at the floor. Then he stood up, brushing off imaginary lint from his jeans. "You've changed." I nodded. I had to. Without another word, he walked to the door. As he reached for the handle, he paused. "So, you're really not coming back? Not even for Sunday dinners?" I hesitated, but only briefly. "Not until things change. And I don't mean a temporary fix. I mean real change. Until everyone accepts that I am not the default babysitter, that my life matters too, that my time and boundaries deserve respect." Shawn nodded slowly. "I guess that's your choice." "It is," I replied quietly. He opened the door and stepped out into the hallway. For a second, he lingered like he might say something else, but he didn't. He left. When the door clicked shut behind him, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I walked back to the kitchen and put away the groceries I'd dropped earlier, feeling lighter with every can I placed on the shelf. That night, I sat on the couch and texted Rachel. "Shawn found me," I wrote. Her reply came instantly. "How did it go?" "Better than I expected," I typed back. He finally heard me, I think. Rachel's next message made me smile. "You're stronger than you think, Megan. Proud of you." I was stronger than I thought, and I wasn't done yet. For the first time, I wasn't running from my family, but I also wasn't letting them define me anymore. I didn't know what Sunday would look like for them. I didn't know how Mom would spin this latest chapter to the rest of the family, but I knew what my Sunday would look like: coffee by the window, a book in my lap, maybe a walk by the river. My Sunday, my choice. I wasn't going back. And the next chapter of this story, whatever it held, would be written on my terms. The Sunday that followed Shawn's visit was quiet, too quiet. I woke up at 8 a.m., made coffee, and sat by my window, watching a few early joggers pass by along the river. My phone, for the first time in years, didn't light up with demands or guilt-laden reminders about dinner at my parents' house. No one called. No one texted. The silence felt peaceful but heavy, like the calm before a storm. Around noon, curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through my messages. Nothing new, no missed calls, no passive-aggressive texts from Mom. I set the phone back down and let out a slow breath. Maybe they were finally getting the message. But I should have known better. At 3 p.m., Rachel called. Would be the best I answered right away. "Hey." Her tone was careful, almost too casual. "Just checking in. How's your Sunday?" I laughed. "Honestly, perfect. Quiet. How's the family dinner?" She hesitated. "That's actually why I'm calling." I felt a pang in my stomach. What happened? Rachel lowered her voice like she didn't want anyone to overhear, even though we were on the phone. "It's tense. Really tense. Your mom's furious. She's going on and on about how you've changed, how you've turned your back on everyone, how you're being cold and heartless. Your dad's mostly quiet, but you know how he gets, just nodding along, throwing in a few lines about family duty." I rolled my eyes. Figures. Rachel continued. "But here's the thing. Other people are starting to ask questions." I sat up straighter. "What do you mean? Your Uncle Mike actually spoke up today. He asked why everyone expects you to raise Shawn's kids when Shawn is their father. He said, Megan doesn't even have children. Why is this her responsibility?" Your mom didn't have a good answer. She got flustered and changed the subject. I blinked, surprised. "Uncle Mike said that?" "Yeah, and Aunt Linda too. She asked if Shawn's ever offered you any money for babysitting, or if you ever agreed to be a full-time caretaker. And when your mom couldn't answer that, Linda said, sounds like Megan's just been doing free childcare this whole time. That doesn't sound fair." A smile crept across my face for the first time since this whole saga began. Wow, they actually said that out loud. Rachel chuckled. "It's like a light bulb finally went off for them. Honestly, I think some of them didn't realize just how much you were doing until you stopped." I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window, as a sense of validation slowly settled over me. "So, what happened next?" Rachel sighed. Shawn just sat there looking miserable. He didn't say much. "But your mom doubled down. She started saying you're going through a selfish phase, and that you'll come to your senses soon." I laughed bitterly. "A selfish phase, right." Rachel lowered her voice again. "I just wanted you to know people are starting to see the truth, and they don't think you're the villain." That made me pause. For years I'd been made to feel like the bad guy whenever I tried to set boundaries. But now, maybe the narrative was finally shifting. "Thank you for telling me," I said softly. Anytime, she replied. "And honestly, Megan, good for you. I hope you don't give in." "I won't," I promised. But deep down I knew this wasn't over. Monday morning, just as I sat down at my desk at work, my phone rang again. Mom. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, debating whether to answer. Then I hit decline and put the phone face down. An email arrived an hour later, from her. The subject line, "We need to talk." I opened it cautiously. "Megan, you can't avoid your family forever. We're very disappointed in how you've chosen to isolate yourself. Shawn needs your support more than ever right now. His relationship with Julie fell apart, and the children are struggling because they miss their aunt. You're not just hurting Shawn, you're hurting the kids too. You need to come back to Sunday dinners. We expect you this week. Love, Mom." I read it twice slowly. The same pattern all over again, guilt, blame, expectations, but no acknowledgement of why I had pulled away in the first place. No apology, no reflection, just more demands. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to Rachel with a short note. "This is what I'm dealing with." Rachel replied almost immediately, classic, "Hold your ground." That whole week felt easier somehow. Like I was lighter now, that the family's expectations were out in the open for everyone to see. I went to yoga after work, spent time catching up with friends I hadn't seen in months, and even started a new hobby, painting. By Friday, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. But then Saturday afternoon, I got a knock on my door. Not a text, not a phone call, a physical knock. My stomach sank. I peeked out the window before answering. It was Mom, alone. I considered pretending not to be home, but part of me knew it was time to face this head on. I opened the door slowly. "Megan," she said, her voice softer than I'd expected. "Hi, Mom." She looked around the entryway, taking in my new space. "So, this is where you've been living?" I didn't invite her in. Instead, I stepped outside and closed the door gently behind me. "What brings you here?" I asked, keeping my tone even. She sighed heavily. "I miss you." That threw me off. I miss Sunday dinners. I miss seeing you with the kids. And I miss knowing what's going on in your life. For a moment, I felt that familiar pull, the daughter in me, wanting to make things right, to fix everything, to comfort her. But I held steady. "I miss you too," I admitted honestly, "but I can't go back to how things were, Mom." Her eyes glistened, but she nodded slowly. "I know." That surprised me even more. She took a deep breath and continued. "Your Uncle Mike, he said something last Sunday that stuck with me. He said Shawn's been leaning on you for too long, that we all have, and maybe we didn't realize just how much until you stepped away." For the first time, it felt like she really understood, or at least was starting to. "Shawn's angry," she added, "but deep down, I think he knows you're right." I didn't say anything. I just listened. She reached out and took my hand gently. "I'm sorry for making you feel like you didn't have a choice." Tears pricked my eyes, unexpected and sharp. "Thank you for saying that," I whispered. "I don't expect you at Sunday dinner," she said. "Not until you're ready, if ever. I just wanted to see you, and to say, we're going to figure this out." In that moment, for the first time in years, I felt like my mother was really looking at me. Not just as an extension of the family's needs, but as a person with boundaries, feelings, and limits. I nodded slowly. "That means a lot." We stood there for a few more moments, neither of us rushing to fill the silence. Then she gave my hand a final squeeze and stepped back. "I'll let you be," she said gently. "But if you ever want to come over, the door's open." "Thanks, Mom." She walked down the path back toward her car, and I watched her drive away. Inside, I sat down on my couch, my heart full but calm. Maybe this wasn't the end of my relationship with my family. Maybe it was just a new beginning, a healthier one where I didn't have to sacrifice myself to feel loved. But I also knew this wasn't over, not yet. Shawn still had to come to terms with the fallout, and I wasn't sure he'd let this go so easily. The next week felt different, lighter, but also filled with an odd anticipation. I kept waiting for Shawn's next move, knowing he wouldn't take my absence quietly for long. And sure enough, it came on Wednesday. I was at work finishing up a report when my phone buzzed. An email from Shawn. The subject line made me sigh, "You owe me an explanation." I clicked it open reluctantly. "Megan, I don't know what kind of phase you're going through, but it's unacceptable. The kids keep asking why they can't see their aunt. They miss you. I can't believe you just walk away from them like this. And honestly, I'm drowning here. I can't keep up with work, and the kids need someone stable. You've always been that person. You've always been reliable. You're supposed to be their safe space. I'm a single father, Megan. I'm doing my best. But you abandoning me like this, it's cruel. You need to come back. I need your help." And so do they. I closed the email without replying. I sat back, feeling that familiar swirl of guilt rise up, but this time I didn't let it drown me. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was simply refusing to let my life revolve around Shawn's chaos anymore. But his words still echoed in my head all night. On Thursday, Rachel called, again. I heard Shawn's been calling everyone now. Uncle Mike, Aunt Linda, even Dad's cousin Carl, who lives 3 states away. He's trying to rally support. I rolled my eyes. Of course he is. Rachel's voice lowered. Megan, he's struggling. But honestly, no one's taking the bait this time. Everyone's starting to realize he's leaned on you for too long. That was a small comfort, but I knew Shawn wouldn't stop there. He'd look for sympathy wherever he could get it. And sure enough, on Friday night, he texted me again. Megan, I'm dropping the kids off at your apartment tomorrow. I have to go out of town for a work trip. I can't take them with me, and Mom and Dad can't handle them for a full weekend. I'll bring them by around 10 a.m. I stared at the message in disbelief. No question, no request, just a statement of what he planned to do. I didn't even bother typing out a long reply. I simply wrote, "No, Shawn, I won't be here." A few seconds later, his reply came, "You can't be serious. What am I supposed to do?" This time I didn't respond at all. I turned my phone on silent and set it aside. Saturday morning, instead of sitting around waiting for Shawn's inevitable arrival, I packed a small bag and headed out early. I drove to a lakeside cabin I'd rented for the weekend, a peaceful retreat surrounded by trees far away from the chaos I'd left behind. I spent the day hiking, reading by the water, breathing fresh air. My phone stayed in airplane mode, tucked deep in my bag. By Sunday evening, when I finally turned my phone back on, the notifications flooded in. First, a text from Rachel. "Shawn's furious. He showed up at your old apartment at 10 and found a stranger living there. He called Mom and Dad in a panic, and they all tried calling you. Mom even drove by but couldn't find your car." Then Shawn's texts in rapid succession. "Megan, where are you? Why aren't you answering? I told the kids they'd be with you this weekend. They're so disappointed. You've really changed. You used to care. What happened to you? This isn't who you are." His final message chilled me. "Fine, don't answer. But don't expect this to just go away. We're family whether you like it or not." I put my phone down again, took a long breath, and let it all slide away like water. Later that evening, Rachel called again. "You okay?" "Better than okay," I said, for the first time in a long time. She hesitated. "Well, you should know. Shawn told Mom he's thinking about taking legal steps. He's talking about some kind of guardianship arrangement or making you a legal guardian for emergencies. I don't think he understands that's not how this works." I laughed quietly. He's grasping at straws. But it did make me pause. Shawn was desperate, and desperate people made foolish decisions. That night, when I got home from the cabin, I sat down and wrote an email to my landlord and my employer, making it clear I wanted my address kept confidential. Then I updated all my social media privacy settings. I didn't want Shawn or my parents showing up at my door unannounced again. On Monday, I finally sent Shawn a short, clear email. "Shawn, I understand you're overwhelmed. I empathize with how difficult single parenting is, but I am not your backup parent nor your default childcare option. My life is my own, and it is no longer available to fill in the gaps you refuse to manage. Your children deserve honesty and stability from you, their father, not deception and half-truths. If you truly care about what's best for them, you'll step up, be truthful with them, and anyone you date, and take full responsibility. I wish you well, but this chapter, me being your on-call babysitter, is over. Megan." I read it 3 times before hitting send. It was the hardest boundary I'd ever drawn. And the clearest. There was no reply. Not that day, not the next. A strange calm settled in the days that followed. My evenings were mine again. My weekends felt wide open. I went out to dinner with friends without worrying about being called home to babysit. I went to yoga, read books, even started planning a short solo vacation. And then something unexpected happened. My dad called. Not Mom, not Shawn, my dad. "Hey, kiddo," he said, his voice awkward, like he hadn't called me on his own in years. "Hi, Dad." Long pause. I just wanted to say, I get it. I see what's been happening. I don't agree with everything you've done, but I see it. That alone felt like a breakthrough. My dad had always been silent during family fights, deferring to my mom's view. Hearing him acknowledge this was something I didn't expect. "Thanks, Dad," I said softly. "Your mom's still upset," he added. "I know, but I told her we pushed you too hard, that maybe we relied on you too much." Another breath I hadn't known I was holding escaped. "Thanks for saying that. I'm not saying everything's fixed," he added quickly, as if he couldn't get too sentimental. "But I'm saying, I get it now." That was enough. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even a resolution, but it was a step, a small but meaningful one. As we ended the call, I felt something new. The weight wasn't mine anymore. Shawn's chaos, my mother's guilt trips, the endless cycle of sacrifice, they belonged to them now, not me. I was finally free. But I also knew there was one last thing I needed to do. The call from Dad stayed with me for days. I didn't expect him to admit so plainly that they had leaned too hard on me, but his quiet acknowledgement brought a strange peace. Still, I knew there was one more step I needed to take, not for them, but for myself. I hadn't seen my niece and nephew since I walked away. Ben and Lily. I thought about them often. They weren't responsible for their father's irresponsibility or my parents' blind enabling. They were just kids caught in the middle of a mess they couldn't possibly understand. And part of me missed them. So, one afternoon I called Rachel. "Would you mind helping me arrange something?" I asked. "I want to see the kids, but on my terms." Rachel didn't hesitate. "Absolutely, I can help with that." Within a week, she set up a casual meeting at a park near her house. Rachel promised to invite Shawn and the kids, but keep it casual. No ambushes, no lectures. She told Shawn it was just a family afternoon, and that she'd invited me too. When I arrived that Saturday, it was a beautiful day. Bright blue sky, kids laughing in the distance, families sprawled out on picnic blankets. I spotted Rachel first. She waved from a shaded bench. And there they were, Ben and Lily, running around the playground, while Shawn sat under a tree looking tired and distracted. He saw me, almost immediately froze for a second, then gave a tight nod. No anger in his eyes this time, just weariness. Ben was the first to notice me. "Aunt Megan," he shouted, running toward me, arms open wide. His hug caught me off guard, but I returned it wholeheartedly. "Hey, buddy." Lily followed close behind her, smile shy but bright. I knelt down, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "Hi, Lily." "I missed you," she whispered. My throat tightened. "I missed you too." Shawn stayed where he was, giving me space. Rachel hovered nearby, a reassuring presence. I spent the next hour with the kids, pushing them on the swings, listening to them talk about school and friends and cartoons. It felt simple and pure, like how family should feel. Love without expectation, presence without pressure. Eventually, Shawn approached, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. I looked at him carefully. "I didn't come for you, Shawn. I came for them." He nodded. "I know." There was a long pause. "I'm trying," he said finally. "I'm trying to figure this out without leaning on you." That was the first time I'd heard him admit it outright. "I hope you do," I replied honestly, "because they need you. Not a stand-in, not me. You." He let out a long breath. "You're right. We didn't hug, we didn't rehash old arguments, but we understood each other finally." Before I left that day, I promised Ben and Lily that I would see them again soon, but only when it worked for me. I wanted to be their aunt again, but not their babysitter, not their substitute parent. Just their aunt, someone who showed up with love, but healthy boundaries. And that's exactly what I did. In the weeks that followed, I kept my distance from the rest of the family drama, but stayed connected with Rachel and occasionally Dad, who was slowly shifting from being a passive bystander to quietly supporting my independence. Mom, however, remained cold. She didn't call or text, didn't invite me back for Sunday dinners. Her pride wouldn't let her admit fault, and that was okay. For the first time, I didn't need her approval to feel whole. Shawn stumbled a few times over the next month. Rachel told me he asked my parents to help with the kids more often. At first they resisted, still convinced their bad backs and high blood pressure made them too fragile for the task. But slowly they began stepping up, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice now. And Shawn, he learned. He learned how to get the kids ready for school on his own, how to juggle work meetings with sick days and school projects, how to say no to dates when he couldn't find a babysitter. Julie, she was gone for good. She'd blocked him after the revelation about the kids and moved on. And that was his burden to carry, not mine. About 2 months after that meeting in the park, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text. A handwritten letter from Mom. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Megan, I don't know how to say this, except to just say it. I see things differently now. It took me longer than it should have, and I'm sorry for that. I realize how unfair we were. How much we expected from you without ever asking what you needed. You're right, we made you feel like your life was less important, like your time didn't matter, and you didn't deserve that. You've always been strong, but now you're strong in a way that makes me proud, even if I couldn't admit it before. The door is always open, but we'll respect your space. We won't expect anything more than you're willing to give. Love, Mom." For a long time, I sat at my kitchen table, just staring at the letter. Not crying, not angry, just calm. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase years of guilt and resentment, but it was a start. In that moment, I realized something important. I hadn't just built distance, I had taught them all how to treat me, and the lesson had finally landed. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into a drawer. I didn't rush to call or text her back. I let the words sit, giving them time to sink in for her and for me. That weekend, I met Amy for coffee, the friend whose birthday I had missed all those months ago because I'd been roped into babysitting. "You seem different," she said as we sipped lattes under the sun. "I am," I replied. "What changed?" "Everything and nothing," I said with a smile. "I just stopped apologizing for having a life of my own." And that was the truth. In the end, I didn't need to cut my family out completely. I just needed them to respect that I wasn't a convenient solution to their problems anymore. I wasn't a substitute parent. I wasn't a cushion for Shawn's mistakes or a backstop for my parents' denial. I was Megan, a whole person with boundaries, needs, and the right to choose how I spent my time. And as I looked around at my peaceful life, I felt lighter than I had in years. Finally, I was living on my terms. Story 2. After using my uncle's money to take a lavish vacation, my parents expelled me and declared me not family until they realized their mistake. I'm Lisa, a 34-year-old woman who works as a project manager for a tech company in Seattle, Washington. I'm proud to say that I've established a nice life for myself, earning a relatively comfortable $135,000 annually. However, I wasn't handed it. It's the outcome of many hours of labor, careful planning, and hard work. Although I didn't have it easy as a child, my sister Amanda, who is 36 years old, certainly did. She is referred to as the family's golden girl. Literally, blonde and vivacious, she has always been the life of the party. She was treated like the next big thing by my parents and Mike. In all honesty, I believe that her blonde hair played a significant role. They've always had this strange notion that she was unique because she was blonde, which I know sounds absurd. Amanda's childhood was the epitome of perfection. Nothing ever required her to work for it. In addition to buying her a car and covering her college expenses, my parents also assisted her with the down payment on her first home. In the meantime, I took a different route. During my time in college, I worked part-time jobs, lived off of scholarships, and barely made ends meet by paying my bills and rent. I had no debt when I graduated, but I was exhausted. One of the few people who took notice of my diligence was Uncle Robert, my mother's brother. He started his real estate business from nothing and became a self-made millionaire. He has always been very giving to our family because he never had children of his own, but he's the type of guy who thinks you have to work for what you have. He therefore respected that I was fending for myself, even though he provided financial support for Amanda and my parents. The opulent lifestyle that Amanda and her spouse Brian lead is all smoke and mirrors. The amusing thing is that Amanda has a ton of carefully chosen vacation pictures on her Instagram. Private school functions, expensive dining out, Noah and my nephews. However, if you look behind the scenes, Uncle Robert owns all of the money. Neither she nor Brian have actual jobs. Amanda has never worked a day in her life, and Brian is technically in sales, but he's only average at best. She identifies as a full-time mother. Let's be honest though, she has a nanny, my folks. Uncle Robert provides all of the funding for two. He pays their monthly expenses and medical bills, and they reside in a lovely retirement community in Arizona. They never really saved much for retirement because my mom was a teacher and my dad worked in factories for the majority of his life. However, they don't appear to feel bad about depending on Uncle Robert. They behave as though they were born with it. You're the only one in this family who understands what it's like to stand on your own 2 feet. Uncle Robert once told me, it felt like someone had finally recognized my struggle. So hearing that meant the world to me. Although I am aware that Amanda is upset with me for our relationship, the fact is that she couldn't live without him. To be honest, I don't have any expectations of my parents, and I'm fine with that. Watching them continuously indulge Amanda while pretending she's a saint for spending money that isn't even hers is just difficult. The thing that aggravates me the most is Amanda's superiority complex. She is always showing off her lifestyle and making disparaging remarks about how I work too much or lack the ability to enjoy life. In actuality, though, I'm content. Even though my life isn't as glamorous as hers, it's still mine and real. I sometimes question whether Amanda is even aware of her good fortune. She has never really had to struggle, in my opinion, and it shows in the way she despises me for being independent. She believes she is succeeding in life. However, all I see is someone who is totally reliant on other people. Being a part of this family can feel like a never-ending uphill battle this Christmas, even though I adore Uncle Robert. Let's say that things got out of hand. Uncle Robert therefore takes the family on a lavish vacation every Christmas. I'm not gonna lie, we've been doing it for years. For a few days it's pleasant. We stay in opulent hotels, enjoy delicious meals, and occasionally get along. To be honest, I believe Uncle Robert uses his extravagant behavior as a means of maintaining family unity, because we now all reside in different states. He chose an Aspen ski resort this year. Even though I'm not very good at skiing, I was still thrilled because, come on, Aspen is beautiful in December. Furthermore, I don't take lavish vacations every day. In retrospect, Uncle Robert's biggest error was assigning Amanda to handle all of the booking, but he has always trusted her to do so, presumably because she has plenty of free time and nothing else to do. I considered volunteering, but I didn't want to offend anyone, even though she's only using Uncle Robert's money to book things Amanda loves being the planner, because it allows her to claim credit for everything. I reasoned that what could possibly go wrong? In any case, due to work, I booked my flight and arrived in Aspen a little later than everyone else. I had to finish up before I left because my company had a big project deadline. After hauling my suitcase through the snow, I reached the resort at about 4 in the afternoon. There were charming little cabins, snow-covered mountains, and sparkling lights strung up everywhere in this stunning photo. It resembled a scene from a Christmas film. Even more amazing was the main lodge. Vaulted ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains, and a massive stone fireplace. Families were enjoying hot chocolate while relaxing by the fire. Everyone appeared to be having a great time, and couples were arriving from the slopes. I expected a seamless, welcoming experience when I approached the front desk to check in, but instead I got this perplexed look from the clerk. "I apologize, ma'am," she said, frantically typing on her computer. "Under your name, we don't have a reservation." I initially assumed that perhaps Amanda had simply forgotten to add me. Error to occur. However, Amanda remembered that she had done it intentionally. I could tell she was going to make a smug, passive-aggressive remark as soon as she entered the lobby. This was just another instance of Amanda's ability to use any circumstance as an opportunity to feel better than others. She arrived with the appearance of someone filming a commercial for a designer of winter coats, a huge smile that could shatter glass and flawless blonde hair. "Oh, Lisa," she said, seeming taken aback by my presence. "I only reserved rooms for the actual family, didn't I tell you? Not to mention Mom and Dad, Brian, Noah, and me. Never in my life have I been so stunned into silence. How do you even react to that kind of thing?" It was pretty obvious that she didn't think of me as belonging to the group when she said real family. Additionally, she showed no remorse at all. That was the icing on the cake. I looked at my parents in the hopes that they would intervene and speak, but they chose to avoid making eye contact. They were embarrassed, but not enough to take any concrete action. Amanda continued. "She never knows when to stop, of course. But you're very self-sufficient, aren't you?" She spoke in her phony, sweet voice, which she uses to mock you while feigning kindness. "You can probably find something close by." Then she chuckled, as if the entire situation were a joke. My face was starting to get hot, but I didn't want her to see me in a bad mood. Over the years, I've discovered that Amanda enjoys making others feel insignificant, so the best strategy to deal with her is to pretend she doesn't bother you. I inhaled deeply, made myself smile, and said, "Okay, have a great holiday." After that, I picked up my bag and left. I could feel Amanda's arrogant eyes on my back as I walked out of the lobby. I wasn't going to let her spoil my trip, even though she likely believed she had triumphed and humiliated me to some extent. To tell the truth, Amanda had previously pulled a similar prank. She has been the queen of exclusion for all time, either by inadvertently failing to invite me to family dinners or by purposefully keeping plans a secret until it's too late for me to attend. Reminding me that I don't belong in her eyes seems to give her a sick sense of satisfaction. Additionally, my parents have consistently allowed her to get away with it. They acted as though she was innocent. Furthermore, nothing has changed. If anything, as we've aged, they've become more enabling. "Oh," they'll say, "that's just Amanda," or "perhaps she didn't mean it that way," as though there were no actual repercussions for what she did. This, however, felt different. This was not merely a casual get-together or dinner. It was Christmas, a time for the family. And she knew how painful it would be, so she purposefully left me out. When I finally stepped outside, I was furious. Despite the cold air hitting my face, I remained unfazed. Determined to find another place to stay, I took out my phone and began searching for hotels in the area. I had no intention of scuttling back to Amanda or my parents and pleading for a bed. I looked for a few minutes and discovered another upscale hotel 10 minutes away. A suite was available. Even though it was absurdly costly, I didn't mind. I refused to let Amanda's trivial antics spoil my Christmas. I dragged my suitcase through the snow while I waited outside and called for a cab. I began mentally reliving the entire scene as I stood there. The fact that Amanda actually said those words aloud astounded me. Actual family. Who even makes that claim? Knowing that my parents had most likely approved of it was the worst part. They did not prevent it, but they also did not plan it. More than anything Amanda could have said or done that hurt. After throwing my suitcase in the back, I got into the taxi and gave the driver the new hotel's address. I began to feel a little better as we drove through Aspen's snowy streets. The brand new hotel was gorgeous. It may have even been better than the first one, to be honest. With floor-to-ceiling windows, a massive lobby Christmas tree, and a heated pool that resembled something from a travel magazine, it exuded a sleek contemporary vibe. My suite was crazy. I already had plans to spend half the night in the soaking tub, the fireplace and the large windows that overlooked the mountains. After I got settled, I began to consider how I didn't want to be by myself for Christmas. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy spending time alone, but I wanted to be with people I genuinely liked, and it was Christmas. That's when I thought of Sarah and Rachel, my two closest friends. Everyone needs friends like Sarah and Rachel, the kind who will drop everything for you in a pinch, and who never fail to lift your spirits. This year, neither of them had any major plans for Christmas. Rachel had recently experienced a breakup and wasn't in the mood to celebrate, and Sarah's family was out of town. First, I gave Sarah a call. "Hello, what are your thoughts on spending Christmas in Aspen?" She chuckled. "Are you serious?" I was dead serious. I don't want to spend my vacation alone, and I have a suite at this fantastic hotel. Come spend some time together. Sarah made no hesitation at all. I'm on board. As soon as we can, Rachel and I will arrive. When they arrived later that day, I felt as though a burden had been removed. After exchanging hugs and catching up on everything, we started transforming the suite into our own private Christmas retreat. We ordered room service as our first action. Everything from burgers to fries to desserts, you name it. After that, we made the decision to use the hot tub, which was the most soothing thing I've ever done. Overlooking the mountains, the hotel featured a sizable outdoor pool area with a hot tub. I felt like I was on vacation for the first time that day as the steam rose into the chilly night air. We began discussing the entire matter with Amanda while we were seated in the hot tub. Sarah was incredulous. In fact, she claimed that you were not a member of the true family. Rachel shook her head. She's always been a piece of work, but this is a new low. Honestly, you're better off not spending Christmas with her. They weren't wrong. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that being excluded was actually a blessing in disguise. I got to spend the holiday with people who genuinely cared about me rather than having to put up with Amanda's rudeness and my parents' partiality. We returned to the suite later that evening and turned on some Christmas tunes. We laughed until our sides ached, ate way too much chocolate, and danced around in our pajamas. We felt like children once more, enjoying a sleepover while putting all other concerns aside. I made the decision to share a couple Instagram stories at one point. My intention was not to be petty. Well, I may have been a bit petty, but I wanted Amanda to know that my vacation wasn't ruined by her small antics. I shared a picture of our ridiculous room service, spread a video of us dancing in the suite, and a video of us in the hot tub with the mountains in the background. As it turned out, Amanda was the first to see them. Through the screen, I could almost feel her rage. It's likely that she couldn't tolerate the notion that I was enjoying myself more than she was. Amanda must have gone crazy when she saw me content and unconcerned, because she's the type of person who loves attention. We ordered breakfast in bed when we woke up late the following morning. We watched corny Christmas movies as we ate these enormous trays of waffles, eggs, bacon, and freshly squeezed orange juice that the hotel had brought. I had the most laid-back Christmas morning in a long time. "You know, this might be the best Christmas I've ever had," Sarah said to me at one point. Likewise, Rachel concurred. Just good friends and delicious food, no drama or stress. This ought to become a custom. Sincerely, I was beginning to experience the same emotions. The ironic thing is that I didn't think about Amanda and my family as much the more fun we had. Presumably they were back at the original resort going about their daily business as usual, ignoring all the cracks beneath the surface, and acting as though everything was fine. I didn't feel like I was missing out for once. We made the decision to get dressed up and head to one of the hotel's upscale restaurants that evening. The ambiance was warm and joyous, and the food was fantastic. We discussed a wide range of topics, including relationships, work, and our plans for the upcoming year. By the end of the evening, I felt completely different. I understood as we made our way back to the suite that Amanda's exclusion had in fact given me the greatest gift of all, the opportunity to celebrate Christmas with those who really mattered. Uncle Robert texted me the morning after we started our little Christmas retreat. He expressed interest in having breakfast with me at my hotel. I was both relieved and anxious because I assumed he must have heard something about what transpired at the other lodge. I wasn't sure how Uncle Robert would respond to Amanda's predicament, but he doesn't play around with family. He was already seated at a corner table drinking coffee and appeared to be as composed as ever when I met him in the hotel restaurant. Uncle Robert is one of those individuals who effortlessly attracts attention. He is shrewd, unflappable, and always seems to be 10 steps ahead of the competition. After exchanging the customary greetings, he got right to the point. "Well, Lisa," he said, putting down his coffee cup. What took place at the lodge, I inhaled deeply before telling him everything. Amanda's smug little speech about making reservations for the real family started as soon as I got there, and realized I didn't have a reservation. I tried not to come across as overly whiny, but I also didn't sugarcoat anything. As I talked, I simply stated the facts. Uncle Robert's expression changed, and I could see it. He appeared thoughtful at first, but as I continued to speak, his expression darkened. He was shaking his head in shock by the time I was done. He said, "I trusted Amanda to take care of everyone's booking." His tone was firm and low. "It's unbelievable that she left you out in that way. And your parents did nothing but watch it happen." I gave a nod. "Basically." Uncle Robert leaned back in his chair and let out a sigh. "It's unbelievable," he whispered. Our food was brought by the waiter. I had pancakes, Uncle Robert had toast and eggs, and we sat quietly for a minute while he took it all in. I could tell he was upset, but I wasn't sure what he would do. At last he put down his fork and turned to face me. "Lisa, don't worry. I'll handle this." I wasn't going to argue, but I wasn't sure what he meant when he said, "Take care of this." Uncle Robert truly means it when he says he's going to do something, if that's one thing I've learnt about him. He said he had some calls to make after breakfast and went to his room. Sarah and Rachel were already up and organizing our day when I returned to my suite. I had a feeling that things were going to get interesting, but I didn't tell them much about my talk with Uncle Robert, mainly because I didn't know what was going to happen yet. I received my response a few hours later. Uncle Robert called to inform me of his actions. And he didn't hold back, I tell you. He began by immediately terminating my parents' and Amanda's lodge reservations. He smirked and said, "They'll be packing up today." He continued after I could hear him over the phone. He also made the decision to completely cut them off financially. He was done paying for their lives. He said, "I've been more than generous. However, this is the final straw. They must develop some sense of responsibility." I was taken aback. I didn't anticipate Uncle Robert going nuclear like this, even though I knew he didn't put up with bullshit. I couldn't help but feel somewhat vindicated at the same time. After years of getting away with her entitled behavior, Amanda was finally being caught. My phone started exploding that afternoon. Amanda was the first. "Are you serious, Lisa?" When I picked up, she yelled. "Uncle Robert called it all off. We don't know where to take Noah when he starts crying." To be honest, I didn't feel sorry for her, even though I could hear the panic in her voice. This is something she caused herself. For once, why don't you try being self-sufficient? Calmly, I said and hung up. She called me back right away, but I didn't pick up. Sarah and Rachel, who were laughing at Amanda's foolishness, didn't either. "Is she real?" Scrolling through her phone, Rachel said. "She's most likely going crazy at the moment." Sarah added that she deserved it. This might be the last straw for her. Then it was my mother. Her voice was a mixture of desperation and rage. "You should speak with Uncle Robert," she advised Lisa. "You are aware of how crucial his assistance is to us. We are too old to make a fresh start." I wanted to chuckle. After ignoring my behavior and supporting Amanda's for years, my parents now wanted me to make things right. "Thank you, but no. I believe you should speak with Amanda." I said. All of this was brought on by her. I left before my mother finished speaking, but she sighed and said something about me being self-centered. I put my phone on silent and hung up. Uncle Robert came to check on me in my suite that night. He appeared composed, almost amused, as though he was taking pleasure in watching Amanda and my parents fumble. I don't believe they've ever had to deal with actual repercussions. "Oh," he said, "they will benefit from this." I felt like someone in my family truly had my back for the first time in years as we chatted and laughed for about an hour. Uncle Robert wasn't blind to Amanda's deceit. He was willing to do something about it. By the time he left, I felt lighter. The whole situation wasn't resolved, but at least for once Amanda wasn't getting away with her usual antics. That night, my friends Sarah, Rachel, and I were still hanging out in the suite. We were lounging around, eating snacks, watching Christmas movies, and scrolling through our phones. Honestly, it was probably the most relaxed I'd been all year. I posted a few more Instagram stories earlier in the day. Pictures of the fireplace in the suite our room service spread, and a clip of us playing charades and cracking up. Nothing too crazy, just us having a good time. And of course, Amanda was the first person to view every single one. Now I thought she'd just stew silently or send me another passive-aggressive text. But no. Amanda decided she needed to take things to a whole new level of desperation. At around 8:00 in the evening, there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone else, so I figured it was room service or something. Sarah got up to answer it, and when she opened the door, there was Amanda. "Hey girls," Amanda said, waltzing in like she was the guest of honor. She was dressed to the nines as usual. Perfect makeup, some kind of sparkly holiday outfit, and that fake cheery smile plastered across her face. The three of us just stared at her, like, what the hell is she doing here? Amanda didn't seem to notice the awkward silence. She plopped herself down on one of the chairs and started making herself comfortable, like we'd invited her to the party. "Wow, Lisa, this suite is amazing. You guys look like you're having so much fun. Mind if I join?" I could feel my blood boiling. She had the nerve to act like nothing had happened, as if she hadn't purposely excluded me from the family trip and left me to fend for myself. And now, after Uncle Robert canceled her little holiday fantasy, she thought she could just show up and crash my night. I stood up and walked over to where she was sitting. "Amanda," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm, "you weren't invited. Leave." She looked up at me completely unfazed. "Oh, come on, Lisa," she said with a laugh. "Don't be so uptight. It's Christmas." I crossed my arms and stared her down. "It is Christmas," I said, "and you tried to ruin mine. Get out for a second." I thought she might argue, but then she realized I wasn't messing around. Her face turned bright red and she stood up, grabbing her purse. "Fine," she snapped, "but you don't have to be so rude about it." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her as soon as she was gone. The three of us just burst out laughing. It was so ridiculous that it didn't even feel real. "Did that seriously just happen?" Rachel said, shaking her head. "What is wrong with her?" "She's delusional," Sarah said. "She thinks the whole world revolves around her, and now that it doesn't, she doesn't know what to do." I couldn't argue with that. Being the center of attention and getting what she wants is the foundation of Amanda's entire identity. Her lack of self-awareness was demonstrated by the fact that in less than a day she had gone from excluding me to interrupting my plans. For a while we made jokes about it and speculated about her next move. According to Sarah, she's most likely sitting in her car right now texting everyone she knows about how cruel you were, or looking for a different party to crash. To be honest, I didn't give a damn about Amanda's actions after she left, Rachel added. That she was no longer ruining my night was all that mattered to me. After preparing some popcorn and turning on the Christmas movie once more, we resumed our enjoyment. Naturally, though, Amanda was unable to ignore it. My phone began buzzing with texts about an hour later. The first one said, "After everything I've done for you, I can't believe how you treated me. How do you pay me back?" In fact, when I read that, I burst out laughing. She has done everything for me, such as the guilt-tripping texts followed. "Noah couldn't have been happier to see you this Christmas. He has spent the entire day inquiring about you, and now he is crying because he was unable to see his aunt. How could you harm him like this?" Indeed. The traditional think of the kids strategy. When Amanda is in the wrong, she loves to use Noah as a shield. It seems as though she believes that if she brings up her child, I will magically forget about her actions. My favorite text was the last one. "Lisa, you've changed a lot. I used to think you were a thoughtful and kind person, but now I realize how self-centered you are. Happy Christmas. I hope you're content." Sarah and Rachel were laughing uncontrollably when I showed them the text. "She made a concerted effort to paint you as the bad guy." "Oh," Rachel said. "Unbelievable." Sarah stated that she is simply upset that you are no longer contributing to her drama. They were correct. I'd ignored Amanda's actions for years because I didn't want to upset anyone. But she had no idea how to respond now that I was advocating for myself. I didn't even bother answering her messages. Try to reason with her now, but there was no point. No matter what I said, Amanda would continue to believe whatever she wanted to believe. We ended up having a great time, and the remainder of the evening was drama-free. In retrospect, I believe Amanda's small antics increased my gratitude for my friends. They didn't think twice about calling Amanda out for her, and they supported me when my own family didn't. No sense. Not even a month had gone by when I went to bed, but I felt as though I had officially put an end to Amanda's drama, both literally and figuratively after Christmas. My parents were in full-fledged crisis mode, Amanda. To be honest, it was a train wreck. What's the worst? They were solely responsible for it. First, let's talk about Amanda. Her whole phony life fell apart after Uncle Robert interrupted her. She and Brian had to sell their enormous home because they were no longer able to pay the mortgage. They looked for something comparable in a less expensive location, but clearly that was not possible. They consequently found themselves in this small rental home outside of their town. Amanda also made a huge deal out of it. She assured everyone who would listen that they would soon be back on their feet and that the move was only temporary. We all knew the truth, though. They were going to drown. Without Uncle Robert's assistance, she had nothing left to fall back on because she was already maxed out on her credit cards. Noah was forced to transfer to the local public school after being pulled from his upscale private school, about which Amanda was always boasting. Naturally, Amanda made it seem as though she was a martyr for doing it. She said, "We just want Noah to have a more grounded experience." Yes, exactly. As everyone knows, it was because she was no longer able to pay the tuition. And she was completely silent on Instagram. This woman used to share daily updates about her ideal life on social media, high-end vacations, designer handbags, and exclusive school functions. Nothing now. The previous post, which was made prior to Christmas, had a generic caption that read, "I'm so grateful to be spending the holidays with my family. Living in a rental and trying to figure out how to pay the bills must make it difficult to maintain appearances." Uncle Robert, my parents weren't any better off. Cutting them off served as a surprise wake-up call. They were unable to maintain their luxurious retirement community in Arizona without his monthly allowance. They were not happy about having to move into a much smaller condo, let me tell you. My mother wrote me a lengthy, dramatic email about how difficult their situation had been. She laughed aloud as she described the sacrifices they had made for the family and how they never thought they would be in this situation at their age. "We only stayed in that retirement community to make room for you and Amanda to come visit." She even tried to guilt me by saying, as in really, they probably simply enjoyed the free golf and on-site spa. My dad even sent me an email at one point asking if I could persuade Uncle Robert to change his mind. "He's getting older, and I think he made this decision out of anger," he said. "The only person who can make sense to him is you." I didn't respond to that because I didn't even know how. These are the same individuals who allowed Amanda to keep me out of Christmas after all. They now wanted my assistance. Thank you, but no. Uncle Robert had already made up his mind, and I had no intention of interfering. My life, on the other hand, was entirely different from theirs. I was able to avoid the typical family drama for a change. I returned to Seattle after Christmas, resumed my job, and concentrated on the things that truly mattered. I received some wonderful news a week after returning home. I was elevated to the position of senior project manager. It also included a nice pay increase, which was ideal because I had overspent on that Aspen suite. I was also seeing good returns on my investments. Saving for the future has been my main priority, and it's paying off. Having that financial stability is crucial, particularly in light of Amanda's and my parents' current circumstances. Uncle Robert wrote me a handwritten note on my birthday a few weeks later. It was just a plain card with a very meaningful message for me. Nothing fancy. "I'm proud of you for your courage. The greatest gift you can give yourself is independence." As I read it, I started to cry a little. Although Uncle Robert has always been my strongest ally, seeing those words in print felt like confirmation of all the hard work I've put in. Amanda and my parents continued to send me texts and emails in the meantime. Amanda made an effort to play the victim by claiming she had no idea things would get this bad and asking me to speak with Uncle Robert on her behalf. My dad added a few passive-aggressive remarks about me abandoning the family, and my mom sent more guilt-trippy messages about how they were now having trouble making ends meet. Here's the thing, though, I didn't feel bad at all. I allowed myself to feel like the odd one out in my own family for years, as if my lack of ostentation and neediness made me somehow less significant than Amanda. However, I came to a realization this Christmas. My superpower is my independence. My parents may be having financial difficulties, but I don't have to bear that load, Amanda. They are currently coping with the repercussions of their decisions. Regarding myself, I'm doing well and have at last been liberated from the toxic family dynamics that once burdened me. I appreciate your patience if you are still reading this. The story's lesson, I suppose, is that sometimes the best course of action for both you and the person you are dealing with is to leave them.